Hi lovely, Sandy here. I hope you managed to have a good Easter. We were very lucky here. We had the most amazing weather and I think a lot of people did. So I hope that that you had some outdoor space that you could actually get to if you had nice weather and you were not actually working over the weekend. I've had a lot of people who are newly engaged asking me recently over the last week or so what they can actually do towards starting to plan their wedding. Given that we're all in lockdown and a lot of the venues are closed, etc, etc. So if you're in that position, this video really is for you. What I'd suggest is that there's actually quite a lot that you can do, particularly if you're not a key worker, you are at home with a lot of time on your hands. I would use it as a really good time to do lots and lots of thorough desk research. And where would I start? I would start with what I describe as your big vision for your wedding. If you've been here a while, you'll have heard me use that term before. All that means is when you think about your wedding, what is it that you envision? Is it a sort of a festival style, laid back affair? Is it a very sophisticated sort of adults only event in a beautiful restaurant in a city? What is it that is your vision for your wedding? Because only when you have that in your mind and of course an idea of your total budget can you really start to look at any venues, any suppliers, etc., who actually meet that vision. So that's where I would begin and spend some time, whether it's on Pinterest, whether it's mind maps, whatever it may be, just lists, whatever, or it just might be in here. But make sure that you've got that big vision to start with. And then I would start with venue. Now, of course, you can't go and look at venues at the moment, but I wouldn't recommend that you do that anyway to start with. I would recommend that you really go back to that big vision and think about which venues in the area that you want to get married actually meet that vision and fall within your budget. And you can get a great deal of information from venues' websites. You may also be able to see virtual tours. I would also suggest that you start emailing with the people at the venue, assuming that they are actually still there. Some of them are literally closed down at the moment, but if they're actually working, then get in touch, show an interest, ask questions, look at all of their terms and download all of their terms and conditions. And if they're not on the website, ask for them. If the prices are not on the website, ask for them, and really try to get a short list of venues that you think meet your vision, because really your venue is the backdrop to everything else. You can then start to look at other key suppliers, but I really would start with your venue. And the kinds of things that you're going to be looking at are, of course, where it is. You want to be thinking about the style, the type of venue. Do you want a hotel? Do you want a stately home? Do you want a barn type affair? Are you looking for an outdoor space, a meadow or a field? What is it that is actually going to be your big vision of your venue? You're also going to be looking at things like size. So for example, you will probably have in your head an idea of your total number of guests. What you also need to bear in mind when you're talking to venues or when you're looking at their information on their websites is that a number of many venues have a minimum number for each space that they rent out as well. So what that means is, for example, if you pick a room where for your wedding breakfast where they have a minimum number of say 60, but actually you only want 50 people at your wedding, are you prepared to pay for those covers, the basic covers, for those extra 10 people? Now, some people will say yes, because they absolutely want that space, and that's fine. But if you're not, which is the case for most people, then just bear that in mind and see whether or not they've got a different room or a different space, that sort of thing. Think about things like whether it's important to you that it's exclusive. So for most brides, what you really don't want is to meet another girl in a white dress that day. What you might not mind is if there is a small, lunch party or something going on in another room, which means that you're not actually going to pay for exclusive use, but you're not really going to notice that there's anything else going on. So have a think about things like that. And come up with a kind of what I would call your wish list of attributes. We've all got one, and think about what is an absolute, must-have, non-negotiable, and then think about what actually, well, if I got those top 3 things, would it actually matter if, for example, let's say you were really hoping for all of your guests to stay in the one place, but actually the particular wedding venue that you fall for has maybe 5 or 10 bedrooms but doesn't actually have enough space for everybody. Would it be okay, therefore, if there's maybe a number of different levels of hotel, if you like, in terms of cost in the local town? Would that be acceptable? For some yes, for some no. So think about what's non-negotiable and what actually I could be a bit flexible about that. And in terms of where you're going to find venues, think about getting recommendations. Of course, we all have Google, but not all wedding venues, believe it or not, are actually online. There are wedding venues, I think particularly of places in the UK where, maybe they are a stately home where the sort of landed gentry still live in a part of the place, and actually they don't advertise it, but maybe 3 or 4 times a year they let it out because they need the income to keep, often the upkeep of the grounds in these places is extortionate. So they don't advertise it. So how are you going to find out about it unless you've actually been to a wedding there? So I would ask people who who've recently got married. Now, it might be the last thing on earth you want to do to get married at the same place that they did, but of course they will have looked at other venues as well, which might meet your criteria, for example. Also, if you have actually booked any other suppliers, don't hesitate to ask them. They will go to all sorts of different wedding venues and they may know of places that, as I say, are perhaps not even advertised. Photographers are particularly good at this. It's a very rare wedding that doesn't have a professional photographer. And these people go to places that you would never otherwise know hire themselves out as wedding venues. So really do think about getting recommendations from for your photographer if you have already booked one. So that's really what I wanted to say today. If you click below, I will send you my free checklist of all the things that you should ask. I hate the word should, you know what I mean. All the things to think about asking your venue. And of course, at the moment, you can't go and visit, but there are things you can ask them before on my list, and all the sorts of things that you should be asking as and when you can go and visit. And there's also a section at the end. It's a fillable form, so you can fill it out as and when. There's a section at the end for very bespoke questions specific to your wedding, because everybody has those. So have a great rest of your day. Bye.